Oh, oh dear. So sorry, my other one didn't work, so I'm not particularly good at this. My IT help desk is not available, unfortunately. I don't know if anyone would mind saying to the other people on the other one that I'm over here. I don't know why, but the other one wouldn't go live. So hi everybody, and thank you very much for tuning in. So I thought it would be really fun to talk to you a little bit about some of my favourite mudlarking finds. And hi to everybody. I hope that, oh no, I feel really bad because everybody else is waiting on the other side. But yeah, it just didn't work. I even rebooted my computer. Can you actually hear me? Can somebody tell me if you can hear me, please? Let me see. Can you hear me? Oh, you can. Okay, great. Okay, well, thank you very much. This is my first live broadcast, as you can see. I'm feeling a bit nervous now, actually. So I'm going to tell you about some of my favourite finds. And for me, what is the best things for me are things that have stories behind them. I absolutely love finding objects that I can attach to a real person or a place in the past, because that just seems to mean such a lot more. So one of my absolute, thanks Greg, don't muck it up. No, I'll try not to muck it up. So one of my favorite all-time finds, apart from of course my clay pipes, as you know, I love my clay pipes. I have lots and lots of clay pipes. I actually started rearranging them the other day and putting them in a big display cabinet, and I've got some amazing ones, I have to say. Like, look at this one. This one has got a tiny little horse head on the bottom, just there. I don't know if you can see it. So I do love a good clay pipe. This is probably one of my longest ones. That's from about 1820, and it's part of a church warden pipe. So that's lovely. Now this pipe is quite special because it's a pipe which is made by Jephthah Stubbs, and you might remember I tried to find his grave the other day, but he was a pipe maker in the 1800s who grew up in a workhouse, so he had a really very difficult childhood. He grew up in a workhouse because his father was also a pipe maker, and pipe makers were actually very poor people. They really didn't have a lot of money because there were so many pipe makers in London. It was very competitive, and it was quite difficult sometimes to get the money to run the furnace. So a lot of pipe makers were in big trouble. But Frederic Jury, who made this pipe, he left Lambeth Workhouse when he was about 15 with his brother Henry, and they went off and they set up their own workhouse. And Jephthah Stubbs, he ended up having about 12 children of his own, I think. So he had a pretty good life afterwards. So I'm just having a look to see if there's any good comments. Love the pipes. Oh, I'm glad you love the pipes. That's just as well, isn't it? This is my favourite pipe here. Now this pipe was made by a French pipe maker called Louis Fiolet, and unfortunately the head is missing. But you can see here that this pipe is actually a lady sitting on a commode or a toilet, and she's got her skirts hitched up there, sitting on the toilet bowl, and yeah, going to the loo. So a French maker, typical French, dare I say it. And I'm sure that the sailor who had that in his mouth as he was wandering around. Oh, Edward, yeah, I know it's really bad. I don't really know what to do about that on the other link. There's nothing I can really do. I don't know if anybody can tell them. I'm not sure how to do it myself. But anyway, this pipe from Louis Fiolet. He was a pipe maker in the late 18th, early 19th century, and that's got to be one of my favourites. But I can't imagine why anybody would actually make a clay pipe like that. Oh, you're concerned that I don't wear gloves. Well, I'm still alive. I haven't caught anything nasty. Yes, I'm pretty careful. All my tetanus shots are up to date. So I do occasionally wear gloves, but the Thames is a lot cleaner now. There are about 120 different species of fish in there. So it's, you know, it's okay. It's fine. I'm still here. I'm in pretty good health. One of my absolute favourite mudlarking finds is this little metal luggage tag here, which when I first found it, I thought that it had the name of a shop or something on it. But when I looked it up, it does actually have the name of F. Jury from 72 Woolwich Road. And of course, the beauty of the internet these days is that you can find so much out when you're researching. And this man, Frederic Jury, he was born in about 1870 or so. And he went to, no, it was a bit later than that, about 1880. But he went to fight in World War I in Australia. Well, not in Australia. He joined the Australian Imperial Force. So he went to Australia to join up. And then he travelled back over to Europe and fought in the trenches. And he joined up when he was about 45 years old, because I was wondering, why did he go all the way to Australia to join the Australian Imperial Force when he could have just joined the British Army? But apparently he would have been too old to join the army in World War I, being 45. So he went to Australia, joined the Australian Imperial Force, came back and fought in the trenches. And he had a pretty nasty accident. He was hit by a grenade and a stick bomb. And so he was, he left the army because of his injuries. He came back and had several operations and lost some fingers. And he ended up marrying his landlady called Sarah, Amelia, who was older than him, and they didn't have any children. And I think that is one of the reasons why this is so special. You know, when you find an object, it sort of brings that person back to life again. And Frederic Jury didn't have anybody really to tell his story because he had no descendants. So when I had researched his story and found out about the fact that he went over to fight in Europe in World War I, I thought that was the end of it. But then I went on to find his grave, and it turns out that he's buried in a cemetery really not very far away from me at all. And I went down there to have a little look to see if I could find his headstone. And he I couldn't find him anywhere. It was like searching for a needle in a haystack. So I knocked on the door of the cemetery keeper, and he unfurled a really old map of all the graves in the cemetery. And he said, oh, well, he's in the paupers section of the graveyard. So he went down there with me, and we had a look around in the undergrowth, in all the brambles. And finally, we found Fred Jury's grave. And it was quite a special moment, really, because as the cemetery keeper said, you know, just imagine all those years ago. I think he died in about 1930, before World War II. He said, just think the last time there were people standing around this grave, probably, you know, when he was buried all that time ago. So that is just a really good example, I think. You know, you can find something like this, a little piece of metal, which really doesn't look very interesting at all. And it can open up a great big storybook, and you find out about the life of somebody who lived over 100 years ago. So that's a very special one. A lot of people ask me, you know, what is your most valuable find? And I always say, you know, it's really not about the monetary value of an object. It's the story that's attached to the object that you find. It's that story that gives you a real glimpse into how people used to live. People just like you, me, normal people. So that's one of my number one finds, I think. So let's have a look at another one. So this, I'm just going to have a look at some comments here. Da, da, da. Yeah, it is amazing to get all that story from a piece of metal, that's for absolute sure. So this is another one which literally did unlock a fascinating story, and I nearly didn't pick it up because it was there. I had a bag full of stuff, and I thought, am I going to take a rusty old padlock home with me? But some of my mudlarking friends had found padlocks with names on, and I thought, okay, sure, I'm going to take it home and give it a clean. And I'm so glad I did, because when I cleaned this padlock off, on it is written G.E. Morrow and Sons. You probably can't see it, but G.E. Morrow and Sons. And again, I looked up G.E. Morrow, and it was a family that lived in Limehouse, right next to the river, and they had a large shipyard. And as I delved into their history, this was, by the way, in about 1895 that they started their company, G.E. Morrow and Sons. They used to mend boats, and they used to sell oars and masts and all sorts of things like that. But I found out that the family had about 12 children. Now, 6 of them died in infancy, which was often the case at that time. I mean, it must have been really heartbreaking. But 2 of the sons, Frank and Sidney, so there was Frank Morrow and Sidney Morrow, 2 of them fought in World War One. Now, Frank Morrow was the oldest son, and he actually survived the war, and he went on to fight in World War Two as well, where he gained a medal for bravery. But Sidney Morrow, who was only 17 when World War One started, he was called up and he went to fight, and then very, very sadly, 2 months before the end of World War One, he was killed in Belgium somewhere. And so that was just another example of how something seemingly not that interesting can just open up a whole story and bring back to life the story of somebody like that who fought in World War One. And all the Morrow children were baptized in the same church in Limehouse. So when I went to see the church and see where they'd all been baptized, I found a memorial in the garden to all the young men in that area who fought in World War One. And Sidney Morrow was on that memorial. So his name was engraved there. So thanks to this padlock, which was found in a big, crusty, muddy mess on the foreshore, I learnt about Sidney and Frank Morrow. So there you are. Don't ever disregard these very kind of uninteresting looking finds, because you just never know what kind of story they're going to have, really. Let's have a look here. So I think you might know, if you've been watching my channel, that one of my favorite finds is wait for it, this onion bottle. Now look at it. Isn't it amazing? Isn't it cute? It's really like an onion, don't you think? And it was in 5 pieces when I found it, and I have managed to stick it together, and I think it looks pretty good. You can't really tell. Oh, by the way, have I ever thought about doing a book? Yes, I have. I have thought about it, and I am working on that. It's sort of in my mind at the moment, and I'm going to be working on one, so I'll keep you updated on that. So yes, this little bottle is just so very precious. It would have had probably red wine or brandy in it, and yeah, what can I say? It's gorgeous. It's just very, very tactile as well. And you notice all this flaky stuff that came off here, which I've varnished, so hopefully it will stay just like that. It's a real little piece of art. So there we are. One of my favourite finds. I know I said 5 favourite finds, but I'll probably end up going through about 20 favourite finds. It's very, very hard to choose favourite finds because I've got so many of them. I'm just having. Oh, it's weird to see me not wearing stripes. Yeah, I know. I know. It's washing day. I had to wash my stripy top, so there you go. So I'm wearing a black top today. Let me have a look here. Let's have a look. Yeah, no stripes, black top today. Now, of course, it is nice to find valuable finds as well. Having said that, I don't attach a lot of value to valuable finds. This is a very valuable find, actually, and this is one of my favourite finds as well. And it's a Queen Elizabeth I silver half a crown. And I found this completely by chance. It's quite worn, but I don't know if you can make out Queen Elizabeth on there, maybe. Try and get it in the light. You can see Queen Elizabeth with her scepter. Yeah, I'd stopped looking that evening, actually, and I just came out, and I was standing looking out at the river. I was about to give up my job. About 4 years ago, I gave up my job in the corporate world because I wanted to wake up in the morning and feel excited about my life. And I wasn't feeling very excited getting up and trekking in, working as a PA in a bank. It just was just, after doing it for 25 years, it just wasn't happening. So I thought, no, life's short. So I planned to leave my job. So I was standing there looking out to the river, wondering whether I'd made a very good decision or not, or whether it was probably going to be absolutely awful. And then I looked down in between my boots, and there was this round thing, which isn't in itself particularly strange, because usually these round things are little nuts and bolts, but something made me pick it up. And I'm glad I did, because it's an extremely beautiful penny, half a crown, sorry, silver half a crown, from 1601, from the reign of Queen Elizabeth I. And I will share with you that I found it near Greenwich, and that makes it special as well, because Queen Elizabeth was actually born in Greenwich, in the palace there, and it was one of her favourite places to be. She used to love to have parties there, and she apparently used to arrive at the palace on her long ship with 20 oarsmen reclining on silken pillows and everything, and she used to come there, have parties and stay. And I've often wondered, because I found this in an area where there's lots of bones and shells and bits of glass and bottles, I wondered whether it might have been somebody who'd had an extremely drunken party, perhaps even with Queen Elizabeth, and then stumbled out and then lost their money, because whoever lost this would have been particularly annoyed, because it was worth an awful lot of money in its time. It would have taken quite a lot of people to watch a play at the Globe Theatre, for example. So you wouldn't have wanted to lose that. And now I understand it's worth quite a lot, but I wouldn't ever want to. Oh, hi, Rocco. How are you doing? And hello, everybody else. By the way, thanks everyone for all your support with my channel. I really, really appreciate it. Yes, so this coin, very special. I won't ever sell it because it's just too special. And on the back, it says in Latin something like, actually, I can't read the Latin, but it means I have made God my helper in Latin. Queen Elizabeth and quite a few of the kings and queens used to put those Latin sort of biblical texts around their coins, and that's what this one says. But as I was standing out there, looking out at the river, wondering whether I'd done a completely mad thing, giving him my notice, it was really quite special to find something so extraordinary right in between my boots when I hadn't even started looking. So that was my little gift, or one of my little gifts from the River Thames. So very happy with that. Very happy with that. I've often gone back to the same place to see if I could find another one, but I've never found anything else quite like it there. So that's that. Some finds can be quite exciting and explosive, and as you know, I do find quite a lot of ordnance down on the Thames foreshore. Quite a lot of bullets, quite a lot of military badges, buckles, and all sorts of things like that. And then very occasionally you find something a little bit more explosive. And this is a hollowed out hand grenade, which would have been issued to the Home Guard probably during World War II. It's like a Mills bomb, a Hamilton bomb, and it's completely hollowed out, by the way. There's absolutely nothing explosive in there now. But it looks like a little pineapple, and you can see that if it was blown up, it would have just broken into pieces and caused maximum amount of damage. But I did find another one 3 years ago, which did still have the pin in it, and it was all completely live still. So I called the police, and they came along and they confirmed that it was live, which I kind of thought it was going to be. I'll tell you a little secret, actually. I picked it up and ran up the beach with it and put it at the top because I was worried that the tide was going to come in before the police got there, and I wanted to see what was going to happen. So the police came and they verified that it was live, and they called the ordnance squad, who then came and detonated it. And it made a huge bang. And I did actually film it. And if you want to see the footage of the film, it's on the Tideline Art Facebook page. It made a very, very large bang. I'm not sure how much of that bang was just what they wrapped around the hand grenade. But it was a pretty good bang. And what was quite funny was that the next day, the newspapers said that a very large explosion from a hand grenade woke up half of Greenwich, which was quite funny because it was only 9 o'clock in the evening. So everybody thought that, well, people in Greenwich must all go to bed very early. So there's that. So that was an exciting find. And I'm just looking at some of the comments here. Oh, hi everyone. Wow, so many people. Oh, please find a nice gold coin soon. Yeah, I'd really, really love to find a nice gold coin. I would. That's on my list. Now, one of my favourite finds is actually a very tiny, weeny button, and you won't even be able to see what it is. It doesn't look anything. There are a lot of buttons on the Thames foreshore, so many buttons, but often it's things like buttons that can also tell a really exciting story, and it can just take you to places that you just never imagined you were going to go to. And this one here is from Milbank Prison, which has a very, very interesting story. I mean, Milbank Prison was just a gruesome place built in the early 19th century. A terrible, terrible place. You wouldn't have wanted to end up going there. But a lot of people who were going to be transported to Australia and the New World, they were kept at Milbank Prison. And often they were transported down the river to southeast London in Woolwich, which is where I often go mudlarking, down in southeast London. I'm a southeast London girl, and I love it there. It's kind of quiet. It's a special place for me. And so, in all probability, I mean, I found this in southeast London, and I found it near where the prison hulks were moored up in the 19th century until about 1865. Milbank Prison was actually on the site of where the Tate Gallery is now. It was built in that area there. It was apparently on very marshy ground, so there was a lot of disease there at that time. So before people were transported to Australia, they were often sent down the river to the Woolwich hulks to wait for a ship that was going to take them there. So obviously, a prison guard from Milbank Prison was probably accompanying some prisoners from the prison down the river to the Woolwich hulks to wait before they were sent off to Australia or New Zealand. And he dropped his button in the river. And I just find that so interesting. The Woolwich hulks in itself, they are a very interesting topic, very interesting subject to look up. The conditions were absolutely terrible, and it's not far from that area as well that I found something else which might have come from the Woolwich hulks, which was dated and forensically analysed by the police and dated back to the 1800s. And here it is. It's this jawbone, which I have the greatest respect for and keep in a very safe place. But it's very, very possible that this jawbone came to last convicts to Australia, 1868, none to New Zealand. Okay, thanks for that. So Australia, not New Zealand. But anyway, this poor chap could have been on the Woolwich hulks because it was found very close to an area where they were all buried in unmarked graves. So that's very possible he came from there. And it has been forensically tested by the police and dated to about that time. Nan's keyring. Oh yeah, Nan's keyring is hanging up over there, actually. Yeah, that's got to be one of my favourite finds as well. Now, some of the older things that I found are Roman, and this is another favourite find here. This is a Roman mortarium, and it was in 3 bits, but I've stuck it together. It's such a shame that this bit here is missing. And this was declared and registered on the Portable Antiquities database with the Museum of London. And it is a mortarium which was used in the Roman kitchens in about 400 AD. And in it, it's got lots of sort of flinty bits, so that whatever it was they were grinding up in there, maybe little dormice or something, or anyway, things to stuff dormice perhaps, whatever was ground up in there was nice and ground up. So it was like the Roman equivalent of a blender or a mixer, and it's got a little sort of bit there which pours. So, you know, that for me, it's just quite mind-blowing that, oh yeah, the expression poem is said to come from the Prisoner of Milbank, that's right. And apparently going down under also comes from when you go down the passage to get out onto the boat, apparently, so I've heard. I don't know if that's a myth. So yes, here's one of my favourite Roman finds. I've been quite lucky. I found quite a few nice pieces of Roman pottery. So there's that. And another nice piece of Roman pot is here, which is pretty beautiful too. It's almost whole, but not quite. So it's there like that. Made all those years ago by a Roman. Isn't that incredible? I don't think people will be thinking the same about us when they find our very modern dishwasher-safe dishes in however many years to come. So there's that. I am going to show you this now. So I'm looking at some of the, it's hard to talk and read the comments at the same time. So I'm not ignoring you. It's just, it's difficult to actually read them. This is another favourite find. Again, it's an interesting story behind this, and you might have seen the video. When I first found this, I thought it was a token that you put into a shopping trolley. That it's actually from a corroded dog collar tag from a little dog. Because when I got it home, I cleaned it off, and it's got the name Bonzo Tabner on it, 21 Pelton Road. And Bonzo, dog who lived in Greenwich during World War II. So when I looked up the address, 21 Pelton Road, I found that there was a Tabner family there. So miraculously, I actually managed to get in touch with a Tabner family who were related to the owner of Bonzo the dog. And the owner of Bonzo the dog is still alive. I think she's now in her 90s. But Bonzo was her dog during World War II. But the interesting thing as well about this is that whilst I was researching the story of Bonzo, I came across the story of all these millions of pets that were euthanized during World War II due to government advice, because there was no food and because they weren't allowed to go into the air raid shelters and things. So because I found this tag, I then launched a bit of a fundraising campaign to raise enough money to have a memorial for the over 3 million pets that were put down in World War II. And now on the 10th of August, we're actually going to unveil a little plaque in memory of these dogs and cats and rabbits and birds that did get put down during World War II. So again, I think sometimes you can find something in the river and you just never know what's going to happen with it. You know, a story's going to open up and something significant might happen. And I do think that sometimes are really meant to be found. So that's that one there. Now, we do find quite a lot of jewellery in the River Thames, and of course it's always special when you find a ring, especially if it's a gold ring, but you can't help wondering, you know, how did it get there? Did somebody throw it in the river? Did they have an argument? You know, did a marriage break down? There again, there's all these untold stories, and I suppose I've got to say that one of my favourite rings is my gold and sapphire ring, which was another very, very surprise find. And it's one of those things that I look at it and I just wonder who used to wear that. I took it to the museum, and they didn't want to keep it, which was nice, because then I just made it small enough and now I can wear it, which is quite nice too. So it fits me just. It's a bit hot at the moment, so it's not going to go on my finger. But yeah, that's another really lovely gift from the river. I mean, as you've probably heard, that the quote from John Burns, who's the 19th century MP, who says the Thames is liquid history. And I always say that the Thames is like a giant liquid storybook. There's just so many stories in this river, you know, waiting to be found, that have been found. It never ceases to amaze me just how many people and places can be brought back to life through the things that we do find. So there's that. What's that? Do all your finds have to be reported to authorities? What the thing is with reporting things to the authorities, yes, it's very important for mudlarks to declare what they find. If they're over 300 years old, that's one of the stipulations, or if they're of significant historical importance, or if they're treasure. And so, you know, if I've got anything that sort of applies to any of those rules, then I will take it to the Museum of London to be registered. I've got a few things there at the moment, a few of my Roman objects, which I'm looking forward to getting back. But often, a lot of the things I find are not generally older than 300 years old. So I don't report every single thing that I find, and they don't generally want to see clay pipes either, which is good for me because that means that I get to build up my clay pipe collection. And I'm pretty happy about that. Oh, the ring is treasure. Well, when I showed it to the Museum of London, he said he didn't want to keep it. He said it probably was probably from the 1800s, but they didn't want to keep it. So what else have I got here? I have got another thing that I'd love to find a whole one of, is one of these, which is like a witch bottle. Now, this is quite a nice chunk, and it's got the face here, which is said to be based on the wild man, or the wild man, the Bartman, or the Bellarmine, Cardinal Bellarmine. And here he is. He's always looking kind of miserable. And these stoneware, sort of 1700s, 1800s jars were often used for putting wine or beer in, but they also were used to put a nasty mixture of like urine and blood and pins and old wine, and then buried under steps or hidden in the wall to keep the evil spirits away. It was said that they used to jump in and impale themselves on the pins, get drunk on the wine, and stay away from the house. So it used to protect the house. And we often find, and mudlarks often find, little bits of the neck with the face on, but it's pretty rare to find a whole one. And so that is definitely on my wish list. So what is a witch bottle? Well, it's a witch bottle so called because it would have like a type of a spell in it. It would have like pins and urine and blood and all sorts of nasty things like that. So there you go. Justin, yes, Dustin, sorry, yes, you are right. They wouldn't want feral pets running around in London. Absolutely. So what else have I got here? What else have I got here? I've got a nice little piece of Roman glass here, which I'm also very, very happy with. Can't help wondering if it was sitting on a table with wine in it or some other delightful Roman juice. So that's rather special. Yeah, there's a funny noise coming from my laptop. I think it's overheating. I think that's what's happening. Yeah, it's like a hoot. Oh, that's right. So I won't stay for too much longer because it looks like my laptop's going to blow up. But I wanted to also just say that I have found about 130 messages in bottles in the River Thames since I started mudlarking, and I keep them all in this file. And it's river stories. So I found an awful lot of them, and some of them are quite amusing. A lot of them are in glass bottles, which is good news. But one of my favourite ones I found was sent by a little boy called Jack, and I'll read it out to you. It's here. So this is a message in a bottle that was sent by a little boy, and when I opened up the bottle and read the message, it said, "I wish I could be a Dino Thunder Power Ranger, the Red Ranger from Jack Hodges." And as you probably know, I try and engage people with my finds and do a bit of research and see if anybody can trace the person, you know, whether that be from a mudlarking find or a message in a bottle. And so I put this on Twitter and said, "Can anyone help Jack's wish come true?" And remarkably, we actually managed to trace Jack, which was absolutely, yeah, very miraculous. And so I sent him a Dino Thunder Power Ranger outfit, and he sent me back a nice little picture of himself wearing his Dino Thunder Power Ranger outfit. That was a few years ago now, so he's probably grown out of it. But I've often wondered if he's perhaps thrown in a few messages asking for something a lot more expensive, you know, and luckily I haven't found those. But I found a real mixture of messages in bottles. It's quite interesting that so many people still write them. I mean, often people write messages in bottles to say goodbye to people. They channel a lot of emotion into the painful feelings and put them in a bottle, and it's sort of taken away down the river. And if I find one like that, I don't keep it, obviously. I just take a picture and then generally send it on its way. But this was another funny one. This one was from a man who was sitting on Tower Bridge drinking some wine, and he says, "Hi, it's the 12th of April 2014. Me and the love of my life are drinking wine. We are at Tower Hill, London." So, and he left a couple of numbers. So I called up the numbers, and a man answered the phone, and I said, "Hi there, I know, do you remember having a bottle of wine with the love of your life?" And there was a very long silence on the telephone, and he said, oh no, I was really drunk when I wrote that." So that was quite funny. And I said to him, "Well, do you mind sending me a picture, because I write a blog about messages in bottles, and I could do a little feature on you." But I didn't hear back from him, sadly. So who knows if he's still with the love of his life or not. So that was quite amusing. Pipes. So I'll have a look at some questions. Please sell some of your pipes. I don't generally like selling pipes. I must admit, I get so many requests to sell pipes, but I'm actually building up a collection, and I'm hoping to be able to exhibit some of them. And in fact, if any of you are in London in September, and there's going to be the Totally Thames exhibition from, I think it's the 23rd of September to the 29th, I believe. Anyway, I will be posting some information about that, but I'll be taking a lot of my clay pipes there. This is one that I found recently, which I was very happy with. It's always kind of sort of is so incredible when you think that a real person actually smoked that, and they were the last person to touch it before you did when you find it, and that they're still intact. And I know that so many people get very worried when I'm digging my clay pipes out of the mud, but I have to tell you that I have not yet broken any. I promise, none. I think it's the noise of the trowel against the pipe, which really sort of worries people. But honestly, they are tougher than you would think. They're tougher than you would think. What else have I got here? What else have I got? So I have. Ooh, so looking around. Oh, now here is my. I showed this the other day actually on a video. This is an interesting find. This, I believe, is some kind of religious offering, and it's very, very heavy. It's almost like lead or cast iron, but it's like an African goddess, and she's rather beautiful, isn't she? Sorry, Michael, it's cringe-inducing when the trowel rubs the pipe. Yeah, you're right, it is, but the sound is worse than the actual thing. There we are. So there's that. We do find a lot of religious offerings in the River Thames. There is a bit of a debate as to whether or not people should leave them or can take them. But, you know, I've been told, and as a lot of other mudlarks have been told, that once they're actually thrown in the river, their purpose is done. So I don't think there's any terrible sort of reason why you shouldn't take them. Personally, I usually leave them, but occasionally I pick them up and bring them home. And I am going to do a video about them, actually, because I just think it's really interesting. And I'd love to speak to some people. If anybody does actually throw religious offerings in the river, I'd be really interested to speak to them. So that's that. Oh, here's my here's a bowl, which I absolutely love. You just do find the oddest things in the river, and that's one of them. So I also find a lot of old toys in the river. It's incredible, really. I think there isn't anything that I haven't really found. But I do wear one of my finds, and that is this here. And it's a little heart which I found and which I had attached onto a piece of silver. And I always wear it when I go mudlarking. I don't like to think that I'm, what's the word, superstitious at all, but I always wear that when I go mudlarking. And it's a beautiful little heart, and I can't help wondering how it got in the river and who it once belonged to. So it's one of those little mysteries. And here is my new clay pipe silver charm, and this was made by a very talented lady called Wendy, and Cy Finds will soon be doing a giveaway on his channel of some jewellery that she has made. It may be a clay pipe with a garnet. There's a Thames garnet in there, and so look out for that on Cy Finds' channel, because these are really beautiful. And also on my community page there is a link as to where you can buy these clay pipes. So so let me just have a look at any of the questions. Well, thank you very much for all the comments. Well, I'm very grateful to you all for tuning in. I hope it wasn't terribly boring. I wanted to try this out and just see how it worked. Almost had a disaster when the other thing didn't work. You know, I think I'll do this from time to time when I've got something really fascinating and interesting to talk to you about. But I think that's it for now. Oh, any news on my son's band? Yes, of course. Yeah, everybody who helped my son Angelo with a vote to go on the Bon Jovi cruise, as I said on the community post, he actually did get through, so he is going to play for Bon Jovi at the end of August on a cruise. It's mad, because he's always been so utterly mad about Bon Jovi. Yeah, really. So he's going on the cruise, and the exciting news is that I'm going on it too. So I'm very excited. And if somebody had told me this time last year I'd be going on a Bon Jovi cruise, I would not have believed them. And I'll tell you something else, which is quite funny, and he doesn't know this, and I'm sure he's watching this live feed, is that they have a karaoke live competition on the Bon Jovi cruise. And so you have to film yourself on a YouTube video singing a bit of a Bon Jovi song, and you win the chance to sing it with the Kings of Suburbia, or whatever they're called. Kings of Suburbia, the Bon Jovi band, on one of the nights on this cruise. So guess what? I actually entered, and I did, and I filmed myself trying to sing a Bon Jovi song. So if I find out that I win the karaoke thing, I may share the video, but then chances are I won't. So we'll see. We will see. But I'll definitely tell you about it and how it goes. Anyway. But yeah, it's been really hard. I'm sorry if I haven't answered any questions, but what I'd like to say is if you have asked a question and I just totally ignored it because it's really hard looking and answering at the same time, please write it down in the comments, or send it to me that way, and I will answer your question. I know that it can be really annoying sometimes if you ask a question and then it gets completely ignored. So please do write it down. And honestly, thank you very much for all your support and all your comments on my videos. I really appreciate them, and I'm looking forward to making lots more. So I think that is it. I better stop while the going's good, and I really hope that you all have a really lovely evening. Oh, by the which Bon Jovi song did I cover? Who Says You Can't Go Home? That's the one I did, because yeah, Who Says You Can't Go Home? So, that was the one. Oh, Beth, somebody says don't stop. Okay, thanks Rocco, thanks Rachel, thank you very much, and I'm gonna sign off now and say goodbye, and thank you for watching. Have a really great evening. Lots of love. Cheers, guys.